I welcome the opportunity to present Budget 2023 to this House. When we gathered in this chamber for Budget 2022, we were emerging from the very worst of the COVID-19 pandemic. We now face a further economic challenge. If you are an older person, you're having to spend more of your pension on heating your home. If you're looking after your family, you are now facing higher grocery bills. And if you're running a small business, you are trying to cope with the increases in the cost of energy. This is why Budget 2023, presented by Minister McGrath and I today, is and must be a cost of living budget, focused on helping individuals, families and businesses deal with rising prices. As we have seen all too clearly over the past few years, with Brexit, with COVID and now with the war in Ukraine, unforeseen risks and challenges are becoming more frequent in their occurrence and more severe in their impact. As one of the most open economies in the world, we benefit when things are going well internationally, but when they reverse, we are also one of the most exposed. And as such, it is imperative that we are prepared for these shocks. Our recovery from the pandemic is testimony to the value of that preparation. We faced the pandemic with our finances in good shape, and this ensured we could both respond and recover in its aftermath. Therefore, Budget 2023 helps with the challenges of today, but will also ensure that we have sufficient reserves for what the future may bring. And we must also be aware of the danger of making inflation worse by decisions that we could take. The onset of the war in Ukraine has sent shockwaves throughout the global economy, and this is most evident in energy and commodity markets, where prices surged at the onset of the war and have remained high. Energy price inflation intensified over the summer as concerns grew regarding a complete shutdown of Russian gas supplies. The wholesale price of natural gas is now around 8 times its average level in the years preceding the war. The inflationary pressures from energy have been further compounded by the imbalance between demand and supply that emerged as economies reopened. Consumers released substantial pent-up demand as restrictions were eased, while supply chain bottlenecks prevented firms from keeping up with that demand. So, as a result of these factors, headline inflation in Ireland, similar to many other economies, is now running at highs not seen in many decades. My department now updates its forecasts to headline inflation of 8.5% for 2022 and just over 7% for 2023. Non-energy, or so-called core inflation, is also experiencing high levels of growth, suggesting effects from energy and commodities to other sectors, such as food, consumer goods and services. So I am now revising our forecasts for core inflation to 5.25% for this year and just over 4.5% for next. And these developments reflect the increasingly broad-based nature of our inflationary challenge. The pace of growth in the economy is expected to slow throughout the rest of the year, as mounting inflationary pressures reduce our ability to spend. So this will see firms hold back on investment. And as a result, my department is now revising down its forecast for modified domestic demand which is the most appropriate measure of our own domestic economy, to 1.25% for next year. Let me, Ceann Comhairle, acknowledge that these are not just abstract economic figures. The government understands, and I understand, the worries which small business owners, farmers, pensioners, those who work so hard to get by feel. And that is why the government will help, and by helping our country, we will overcome this challenge. And we can do this because our economy has strong foundations. Due to the immense work of the Irish people, the labour market has made a remarkable recovery over the past year, with well over 2.5 million people in employment in the second quarter, the highest level on record, and an unemployment rate of 4.3% in August. And looking ahead, while we do expect employment growth to slow, in line with the changes in our outlook for domestic demand, we also expect the unemployment rate to remain at relatively low levels. So while the war in Ukraine poses the most immediate threat to our economy, we remain vigilant of other risks on the horizon. Notably, Brexit could yet bring further challenges. And this is why our public finances matter. They have recovered strongly from the effects of the pandemic, and much of this recovery is due to the careful management of this government in undertaking appropriate responses to the unique challenges that our country faced. The recovery in tax receipts is broad-based. At the end of August, tax revenue stood at almost €50 billion, up by over €10 billion in 2021. Income tax continues to perform well and reflects the resilience of our jobs market, of our people, and the success of the government's employment schemes during the pandemic. The strong performance of VAT receipts confirms the rebound in consumer spending once public health restrictions were lifted. So as a result, I can announce to the House that we will register a general government surplus of €1 billion, or just under 0.5% of national income for this year, and €6.2 billion, or 2.25% for next year. To put these figures in context, last year we recorded a general government deficit of €7 billion. This is extremely welcome news. However, the headline figures don't account for the fact that much of the change is due to excess corporate tax. These receipts could change significantly in the future. They now amount to €12 billion at the end of August, and we expect these receipts to exceed €20 billion by the end of the year. And I will return to this point shortly. It is essential that we use our surpluses wisely. We should not spend everything today. This will ensure that we are ready for tomorrow. It's what we did before COVID arrived. It worked, and this is what we must do again. Because of this, we could help during COVID. Because of this, the government can help again today. And while conditions have been favourable to us in recent years, the government of course notes that borrowing costs for countries have also changed significantly since the start of the year and are now rising. The yield on 10-year government bonds, that's the rate of interest, has increased now by over 2 percentage points since January. So while markets continue to view our bonds, our debt favourably, we know how quickly things can change. The best way to be safe the best way to insulate our public finances from the higher cost of debt is to ensure that our borrowing remains is in line with other small, open EU member states, which is what we are doing. And while the Department's economic projections do envisage a softening in economic growth for next year, due to the phasing out of our exceptional COVID supports and the upward revisions in our tax forecasts, we are now in a strong position. If we continue to follow our current strategy, we should see a stabilisation of public debt at approximately €225 billion. It's also important to acknowledge that on a per-person basis, public debt amounts to around €44,000 per capita. This is one of the highest figures in the world. However, we will achieve a continued decline in our debt to national income ratio over the coming years by delivery of these surpluses, and by 2025 this ratio is projected to be 73%, which is the lowest level for our country since 2009. We simply do not know what we could face in the future. When we face these challenges, I believe we will prevail, and a crucial economic foundation of this is managing our debt safely. It matters. So, managing our public finances allowed the government to act swiftly and decisively to provide support to households and businesses. We're especially mindful of the fact that the rising cost of living has hit hardest for those on the lowest incomes. So, in drafting Budget 2023, the government is aware of our responsibility to strike a balance between helping with the cost of living pressures, but on the other hand, not making them worse by adding fuel to the inflationary fire. The Summer Economic Statement set out the parameters for this budget, as well as our medium-term budgetary framework. And in response to the increase in energy and other prices, the government amended our budgetary strategy for 2023 to double the size of our tax package and to increase public expenditure in order to protect the real value of public services. For future years, we'll aim to stay within the parameters of this approach. It will allow for steady improvements in public services and allow sustainable reductions in personal taxation while ensuring that our public finances remain on a positive trajectory. So, to help families, individuals and businesses to deal with the rising cost of living, Minister McGrath and I today are announcing a package of once-off measures worth €4.1 billion. This will be accompanied by budgetary measures for 2023 worth €6.9 billion. So this brings the total size of this budget to €11 billion. And in addition, there will be a further €300 million in public service support measures funded from the Contingency Reserve Fund. So I recognise that these are significant figures. However, I also appreciate that the needs are also significant, and the strength in tax revenue has allowed us to have the means to undertake such a response. As mentioned a moment ago, at the end of August, tax revenues were approximately €10 billion ahead of the same period last year. And while much of this is due to corporation tax, €5 billion was due to income tax and VAT. This growth is reflected in our domestic economy's strengthening, and that figure is what has guided the scale of our once-off measures for this year. Further, given the urgency of this situation, These measures will come into effect this year and will be detailed by Minister McGrath shortly. On the taxation side, I'm extending the current excise reduction of 21 cents per litre in respect of petrol, 16 cents per litre in respect of diesel, and 5.4 cents per litre in respect of marked gas oil, and the 9% VAT rate for electricity and gas until the 28th of February 2023. And I will be introducing the necessary financial resolutions to the Dáil this evening in order to give effect to these extensions. As I've stated previously, one of the core objectives in Budget 2023 is to help workers not find themselves in a position where they pay more income tax solely because of inflation. There are so many people who work so hard but whose earnings push them outside of access to social welfare benefits. We need to help them too. We need to put money back in their pockets. So I'm therefore announcing an income tax package to the value of over €1.1 billion. I'm increasing the standard rate cut-off point by €3,200 to €40,000, with proportionate increases for married couples and civil partners. I'm also increasing the main tax credits for personnel, employee and earned income credit by €75, and I'm also increasing the home carer tax credit by €100 to support stay-at-home parents. Further, I am increasing the second USC rate band of 2% from €21,295 to €22,920, in line with the 80 cents per hour increase in the national minimum wage recently agreed by the government. The increase in the band will ensure that full-time workers on the minimum wage will remain outside the top rates of USC, while giving a modest benefit to workers whose income is above that amount. In addition, a concession applies to those who have a medical card and earn less than €60,000, such that those individuals pay a reduced rate of USC. Given the broader challenges facing so many this year, I confirm the extension of this concession for a further year. The recent report of the Tax Strategy Group examined the impact of introducing an intermediate or third rate of income tax. Further analysis of that report from the TSG process would give options to government on additional policy levers in future budgets to make our income tax system more balanced and effective. It is agreed that this analysis will commence immediately and conclude prior to the publication of next year's summer economic statement, and will take into consideration the overall macroeconomic and fiscal context. This analysis will assist government in arriving at an informed decision in a timely manner. Were the government to opt for the introduction of a third rate of income tax, it would require considerable change to the systems in both the revenue commissioners and payroll providers, changes that will need significant lead time to implement. We are advised that this could be done for January 2024. As a result, my department will engage with the revenue commissioners on the necessary preparatory work in advance of a policy decision being made by government. The government is also committed to developing a medium-term roadmap for personal tax reform, taking account of the recent report of the Commission on Taxation and Welfare, and will consider a range of measures across income tax, USC and PRSI together with other related personal taxation issues. But as everyone in this chamber is well aware, housing is a central challenge facing the country over the next number of years. Too many people can't afford to buy their own home or are paying too much of their income in rent. Too many people have no home at all. hundreds of thousands of homes will be required over the next decade across all sectors: social, private and rental. The government has made unprecedented levels of investment available to date, and we are seeing results. Some 25,000 new homes built in the last 12 months. 28,000 homes have begun construction, and a further 44,000 have been granted planning permission. But despite this progress, it is clear that the government can do more and will do more. And the Help to Buy scheme has been a significant support for first-time buyers of new homes. Since its inception in 2017, 35,000 people have benefited from it. However, as with any tax expenditure, I'll keep the scheme under review. Earlier this year, I commissioned an independent review of Help to Buy. I'm publishing that report today. There are a number of recommendations within it, and the government will consider this in future budgets. In the meantime, I'm continuing the scheme at current rates until the end of 2024. For those taxpayers who are paying rent on their principal private residence, I am introducing a new rent tax credit valued at €500 per year. This measure, aimed at those who do not get any other housing supports, will apply for 2023 and for subsequent years, but I am providing that it may also be claimed in respect of rent paid in 2022. Approximately 400,000 persons are expected to benefit, and further details are contained in our budget documentation. I have also decided to enhance the pre-letting expenses regime for landlords by doubling the amount that may be claimed per premise to €10,000 and by reducing the period for which a premises must be vacant from 12 months to 6 months. Maximising the use of homes already built is a key objective of this government. Accordingly, I am introducing a vacant homes tax to increase the supply of homes for rent or purchase to meet demand. The tax will apply to residential properties which are occupied for less than 30 days in a 12-month period. There will be a number of exemptions to ensure that owners are not unfairly charged where the property may be vacant for a genuine reason. It will operate on a self-assessment basis and will be administered by the Revenue Commissioner. The tax will be charged at a rate equal to 3 times the property's existing basic local property tax rate. In Budget 2022, I announced a residential zoned land tax. In order to identify zoned land within the scope of the tax, maps are currently being prepared by local authorities who will publish their first draft maps on the 1st of November this year. Following the publication of the maps, any person will have the opportunity to apply to their local authority to have the zoning status of their land amended as part of a variation process. And in Finance Bill 2022, I will bring forward a number of amendments to streamline the operation of the residential zoned land tax to ensure it is efficiently administered. I also propose to extend the Residential Development Stamp Duty Refund Scheme to the end of 2025. In place since 2017, this is a scheme whereby a portion of the stamp duty paid on the acquisition of non-residential land is refunded, where that land is subsequently developed for residential purposes. The net minimum stamp duty payable after a refund is 2%, whereas the normal rate for non-residential residential property is 7.5%. To the end of 2021, the scheme has been availed of in respect of projects that have delivered over 15,000 homes. Earlier this year, the Government agreed a comprehensive redress scheme for those owners who have been affected by the issue of defective products used in the building of their homes. This redress scheme comes with a significant cost, and therefore I am bringing forward a levy on concrete blocks, pouring concrete and certain other concrete products. The levy is expected to raise €80 million annually and will be applied from the 3rd of April 2023 at a rate of 10%. Ceann Comhairle, I want to turn to one of the other key challenges of our times, climate change, the effects of which are more frequent and more destructive. Protecting our environment is the responsibility of us all, and government is acting to reduce emissions and support newer and cleaner technologies, particularly in energy and transport. The additional funding needed for measures such as retrofitting and more sustainable modes of travel comes in part from carbon taxation. This is appropriate and will continue under the government. The rate per tonne of carbon dioxide emitted for petrol and diesel will go up from €41 to €48.50 from the 12th of October, as per the trajectory set out in Finance Act 2020. This will mean that there will be an increase of just over 2 cents, VAT inclusive, per litre of petrol and diesel. However, I also recognise the sharp cost of living challenges currently faced by society. So the government is proposing to help offset this carbon tax increase with a reduction in the National Oil Reserves Agency levy. This NORA levy, which is collected at a rate of 2 cents per litre, also VAT exclusive, will help offset the carbon tax increase, which means the price at the pump won't go up as a result of these taxes or levies. We know the challenges farming communities face as they deal with rising input costs while moving towards a sustainable future. A number of other important agricultural reliefs are due to expire at the end of this year. These reliefs provide important supports to our young farmers and to our farming sector generally. I will extend 5 agricultural tax reliefs expiring this year, and these are the Young Trained Farmer and Farm Consolidation Stamp Duty reliefs, the Farm Restructuring CGT relief, and the Young Trained Farmer and Registered Farm Partnership Stock relief. The duration of these extensions are dependent on the outcome of negotiations at a European level on the Agricultural Block Exemption Regulation. I'm also making provision in the budget for a time-limited scheme of accelerated capital allowances for farmers for the construction of modern slurry storage facilities. And this will assist the sector in adopting environmentally positive farming practices. I'm today announcing specific measures to support businesses and enterprises in Ireland through these exceptionally challenging times. Small and medium businesses are the backbone of our domestic economy. They support thousands of jobs. The SME sector requires a range of supports as it deals with the immediate impact of the current crisis. So I am therefore introducing a temporary business energy support scheme to assist businesses with their energy cost over the winter months. The scheme will be open to businesses that carry on a Case 1 trade, are tax compliant and have experienced a significant increase in their natural gas and electricity costs. It will be administered by the Revenue Commissioner. It will operate on a self-assessment basis. Businesses will be required to register for the scheme and to make claims within the required time limits. It is proposed that the scheme will operate by comparing the average unit price for the relevant bill period in 2022 with the average unit price in the corresponding reference period in 2021. If the increase in average unit price is more than 50%, then the threshold is passed and the business is eligible for support under the scheme. Once eligibility criteria are met, the support will be calculated on the basis of 40% of the amount of the increase in the bill amount. A monthly cap of €10,000 per trade will apply, and an overall cap will apply on the total amount which a business can claim. It has been designed to be compliant with the EU State Aid Temporary Crisis Framework and will need to be approved by the EU Commission in advance of making payments. This Ceann Comhairle is a significant intervention by the government in the Irish economy to protect employment. This scheme forms a large part of our once-off measures. We must weaken the ability of a shock to income becoming a loss of jobs. And this new policy will help employers with their rising bills and help to save their businesses. The small benefit exemption also allows an employer to provide limited non-cash benefits or rewards to their workers without the payment of income tax, PRSI and USC. So I'm increasing the annual limit provided for in the exemption from €500 to €1,000 and will also permit 2 vouchers to be granted by an employer in a single year under the exemption. I propose that these changes will apply in the current tax year so that the additional benefits can be paid this year if an employer wishes to do so. Deputies should also note that I will be following through on the statement of last year in relation to the production of cider by implementing the option in the revised EU Alcohol Directive to grant up to 50% excise relief to independent small producers of cider and pear cider, also known as perry. The government is committed to supporting the nighttime economy, not just our hospitality sector, but our musicians, venues, event operators and organisers who are fundamental to creating a vibrant cultural life. So in line with the commitment in the programme for government to modernise our licensing laws, I'm today announcing that we will halve the cost of applying for a special exemption order which late-night venues require in order to open. This will reduce the excise fees for a special exemption application order from €110 to €55. And this aligns with a number of measures we have taken to support the nighttime economy ahead of longer-term reforms which will be announced when the general scheme of the sale of alcohol bill is published within weeks. A financial resolution will be brought in tonight to enact this measure. As I have stated previously, the 9% VAT rate, which is currently in place to support the tourism and hospitality sectors, continues until the 28th of February 2023. The government is also aware of the critical role that newspapers play in our society, from reporting on local communities to holding those in power to account. And for that reason, I will be reducing the VAT on newspapers from 9% to 0 from the 1st of January 2023. And this is in line with the government's commitment to support an independent press and the Future of Media Commission's recommendation on this matter. Many deputies in this House have also contacted me to seek the removal of VAT and defibrillators, and I told them on many occasions it wasn't permitted under the EU VAT directive. However, after much negotiation, it's now possible for Member States to apply a zero rate, and I'm happy to announce that I will apply this rate to these life-saving devices from the 1st of January. I'll also apply a zero rate of VAT to hormone replacement and nicotine replacement therapies, as well as the small number of period products that are currently subject to a 9% rate. Turning to the various business-related tax credits. Firstly, I'm extending the Knowledge Development Box, which encourages companies to develop intellectual property in Ireland for 4 more years. Secondly, I'm also providing for amendments to the payable element of the research and development tax credit to ensure that it aligns with new international developments. And in recognition of the long production cycle for audiovisual productions, I'm legislating to extend the Film Corporation tax credit beyond the current date of 2024 until December 2028. In recent years, Ireland has emerged as a location of choice for new and innovative multimedia industries such as animation, such as digital gaming. And to continue building on these successes, I've asked my officials to explore the opportunities for Ireland in the so-called unscripted production sector to encourage international firms to locate here and help sustain employment in Indigenous businesses, as well as extending the Key Employment Engagement Programme until the end of 2025 and commencing some provisions from 2019 following approval from the European Commission. I propose to make further important changes in this measure. Collectively, these steps represent progress which can be further built upon in 2023. I'm also extending the Special Assignee Relief Programme until 2025, but increasing qualifying income to €100,000. Turning to other revenue-raising measures, much work is underway in the EU on capturing the windfall gains of energy companies. It isn't fair for some companies to earn excess profits from the current volatility in the energy market, while so many other companies are suffering. Ireland aims to be part of this EU-wide response to high energy prices. If this is not possible, the government will bring forward our own measures. Since its introduction in 2013, the bank levy has been extended on several occasions and currently applies to the end of this year. The current annual yield on this levy is approximately €87 million per annum. I'm extending it for a further year, and following the publication of the report of the Retail Banking Review, I will consider the long-term future of the levy. To support public health policy to reduce smoking in Irish society, I'm increasing excise duty on a pack of 20 cigarettes by 50 cents, with a pro-rata increase on other tobacco products. Ceann Comhairle, I'd now like to take a moment to look beyond these immediate issues of today and consider some issues which we'll face over the medium to long term. I welcome the recent publication of the report of the Commission on Taxation and Welfare. I thank the members of that Commission for their hard work. They considered how the overall balance of taxation might shift in order to sustainably fund public services over the long term. Its recommendations are clearly not intended to be implemented immediately, but suggest a clear direction of travel for this and future governments around how the sustainability of tax and welfare systems may be improved. The report has already fed into a number of policy actions being announced today. As referenced earlier, I've requested that the Department of Finance consider the proposals relating to a range of recommendations across PRSI, USC and income tax in the coming months, with a view to developing a medium-term roadmap for personal taxation reform to address these and other related issues. In the area of property, I welcome the Commission's proposals on changes to local property tax and aside value tax. But these reforms are wide-ranging. They require careful consideration and consultation across government. I'm also committing to commence a review of the REIT and IRF regimes. Institutional investment has played a key role in the provision of housing in recent years. This review will consider those structures and how best they can continue to support housing policy objectives. And in addition, I also intend to commence a review of the use of Section 110 regimes and to establish a working group to consider the taxation of funds, life insurance policies and other investment products. Another area which the Commission considered in great detail was corporation tax. And the pace of international tax reform over the last 12 months has been intense. In October of last year, Ireland, along with 140 other countries, signed up to a two-pillar solution to address the tax challenges arising from digitalisation. We have committed to the two-pillar agreement, and we and I have engaged intensively at OECD and EU level to deliver that commitment. The agreement is in line with the long-standing practice of our country that coordinated multilateral action is the best approach to ensuring the international tax system keeps pace with changes in how business is conducted. Work is continuing to develop the multiple new elements required to give effect to the Pillar 2 minimum effective tax rate. This work will continue over the coming months in conjunction with serious consideration of options for a move towards a territorial corporate tax system. And needless to say, our tax regime is a core element of the economic policy mix of this country and a long-standing anchor of our offering to attract FDI. In addition to our current 12.5% headline tax rate, we will also ensure that we continue to play to our strengths, such as a forward-looking business environment and a dynamic workforce. However, as I acknowledged earlier in my budget speech, we need to be mindful of a reliance on corporate tax. My department has undertaken significant work on these vulnerabilities, showing that approximately €1 in every €8 collected by the state in tax comes from the corporate tax payments of a small number of firms. At the same time, our income tax system is heavily reliant on a small number of employees. Just over 500,000 workers, 10 companies account for a third of our revenue. So my department estimates that so-called excess receipts, the amount which could be vulnerable to a shock, could amount to €8 to €10 billion even in this year. So while these receipts are extremely welcome, we are not using them to fund permanent expenditure. To do so would repeat the mistakes of the period of the global financial crisis. So it is therefore imperative that we treat these excess receipts differently. That is what we're doing. So first, by identifying them, as my department has done through our recent De-risking the Public Finances paper. Second, to provide a clear picture of the underlying health of the public finances, my department will employ a new metric, GGB star, to monitor the public finances, including any excess receipts. So, for example, for this year, it would indicate a deficit of up to €8 billion compared to a surplus of €1. And then thirdly, and most importantly, I intend to start replenishing the National Reserve Fund with some of these excess receipts now to build up our economic resilience. So following so soon after Brexit and COVID, it is a major achievement for our country to be in a position to put additional resources aside in order to prepare for future challenges and to run a surplus. And let me be clear, there are major challenges that we know are coming, which we know will be costly for the future: an ageing population, the digital transition and climate change. Second, we also know that challenges which are largely unforeseen happen more often and they have a big impact. So it's therefore imperative that we prepare our public finances appropriately. This year, I will be directing €2 billion into the National Reserve Fund and €4 billion in 2023. These contributions effectively mean that we will have banked a large share of additional corporate tax revenues, that they don't fund additional permanent expenditure, and it supplies our state with additional firepower to respond to the challenges of the future. And I will be introducing the necessary Dáil resolution tonight in order to give effect to the transfers to this fund for this year and next. So, Ceann Comhairle, I want to conclude, therefore, on an optimistic note. And that is because, despite the many challenges facing our country, this government is confident that we will be able to continue to support individuals, families and businesses. This confidence is based on the fact that we approach this test from a position of strength. A record number of people at work, a budget surplus, reserving money for the needs of the future, inside, not outside, efforts to reform global corporate tax, and we're intervening today to help homes, to help businesses with rising costs. We know we have many risks. We know how quickly they can develop. And I know we need to do more. We need to build more homes, continue to improve public services, and respond with courage and with resolution to our defining challenge of climate change. But we can, and we will. The political centre of Ireland that is pro-European, supportive of enterprise, committed to a sustainable future for our public finances and for our environment, has, with the hard work of the Irish people, helped get us ready for today, so soon after confronting a pandemic. Many are looking at this budget today for confidence. They look to the budget for help. Ceann Comhairle, we can and we should be confident about our future. We know our citizens need help. We know our employers need help. And this budget aims to give this help. I commend Budget 2023 to the House.